Welcome back to College.town. I'm Kristen Eargle, pleased to be joined by DeWayne Peevy, DePaul University's Senior Vice President and Director of Athletics. Thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Hey, Kristen, how's it going? Looking forward to catching up and finding out what's going on in your world too.
All right. Now, you just signed an extension that will keep you at DePaul under contract through 2031. Why now was the right time to make the commitment to the university?
Well, I mean, if you think about it currently, my contract was up in 15 months. And so, it's kind of one of those things that I tell my head coaches is that, once you get to the last year of your contract, that's not usually a good place to be. So it was a normal thing that, I was discussing with our president, Rob Manuel, kind of starting at the beginning of the calendar year. It's like, let's discuss this. Let's give it some time. There's not any haste or pace to it. But like, I think it was just one of the things we've talked about in the last 3 months. And we finally just got to some finalization on it to extend me out to our new strategic plan that we'll be launching this summer to complete that. So basically, I'll be 5 years starting in July.
And then the last campaign, finishing up that one, the Dream Big campaign, I believe you launched it in 21, made some recently big announcements with a lot of fundraising success. Catch us up on where you are there and then the timeline for the new basketball practice facility.
Yeah, that's, like you said, our Dream Big strategic plan that finishes up at the end of this fiscal year in June, and we'll be basically launching our new 5-year plan, which my contract aligns with. Some of the big things in that 5-year plan that we started. I mean, wow, I can't believe that's over 5 years ago. But we talked about a basketball practice facility. It was being a dream, a vision. How do we get to that point? Feasibility studies. A $60 million campaign, which included adding. A couple falls ago, for the first time, we have a locker rooms for every sport at DePaul. That was phase 1 of that plan, spending about $10 million of those dollars. And the next $50 million is the new practice facility across the street, which is a 4-story building, 66,000 square feet, the new space for our men and women's basketball programs. But really, it's something that helps all of our 15 sports, everything from new sports medicine and sports performance space, dining area for all student athletes and nutrition and development and alumni offices, a new broadcast studio in a collaboration with communications in our Center for Digital Media on our campus to be able to broadcast our soccer, softball, volleyball, and even basketball events in the Big East right here in our campus with DePaul students. It's really exciting. And so just being able to visualize that, over five years ago to come to fruition and to be able to get to a point of fundraising those dollars. It's 100% fundraised through philanthropic gifts and corporate giving. So, nothing that, obviously, there's some bridging of that from a campus standpoint, but all of those things being built on external funds was important to our campus environment with everything going on in higher education. So to get to the 20 million cash in hand number, to be able to launch this, to be able to break ground this summer is so exciting because it seems so daunting, so far away sometimes. I think maybe people weren't sure we get to that finish line, but to get to that point after our Blue Demon Challenge at the end of January was really exciting for me. And I think that was kind of this culmination of, all right, we're ready now to take that step. We've finalized our strategic plan. We're going to finish that here in a couple months. All right, what do the next 5 years look like? And I think that's kind of bridged the two questions of talking about to seeing that to completion, seeing what comes with that, seeing the end of the strategic plan. I wanted to be able to have the security and contract in place to be able to finish the work that we just got started about 5.5 years ago. And so it's exciting.
You kind of answered one of my questions about coming up is to see that to the finish. You did spend 12 years at the University of Kentucky as the deputy AD. Your name's been mentioned by fans and media as maybe a candidate for the AD job. Does this extension mean that you're not pursuing the AD job at Kentucky?
Yeah, I think that was the commitment I made to DePaul is that, that this is the place me and my family want to be. I'm the type of person that's always about, where my feet are planted. I've had 12 years, as you said, at Kentucky, 20 years in the SEC in total. And this is what put me on this platform to be here. Mitch Barnhart has been such a mentor to me and giving me those opportunities to grow from starting out in communications, media relations, to get to a point of being over the external, to being the deputy AD for the last 7 years there, to get a position like what I have at DePaul. And I'm just not ready to walk away from what we started. We haven't reached our goals and our ultimate goals. I want to be back in the tournament on an annual basis in both our men and women's basketball programs. I want to see those fundraising successes to a point where, and I don't know if that's 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, or retirement, but it's exciting to me right now. The dreams that I have in my mind are about celebrations, rings, and parades at DePaul. And so obviously, you know, with Mitch's retirement, it brings up a bunch of speculation. I think it really shows the work that I put in 12 years, where even the media or the fans are even talking about me. You know, maybe they've been following DePaul, and we've made some new fans in that. And that's something that was always enticing to me when you're in that role and you're in that deputy seat, trying to figure out what the next step's going to be in your career. But for me right now, it's about what we're trying to accomplish right here in DePaul and in Chicago. And I think it takes 100% effort. We've had one of our best basketball season in recent memory, you know, finishing 16-16, in the 6th seed in the Big East. You know, having our $8.8 million fundraise last year to reach in one of our best fundraising years. The momentum that both Chris Holtman has brought to this program, along with my other new coaches and Ryan Jamison and Jill Pizzotti last year. Like this is a thing where you've got your team, you're ready to get geared going. I'm not doing my job if my name doesn't come up somewhere, because that means that we're doing something right. And I think I wish Kentucky, you know, I know Dr. Eli Capilouto very well. He was the one that pushed me to this job and to go back and get my MBA. I'm now an alum of Kentucky too, because I have my master's there. And so those are things that are always, some of my friends, my kids grew up there. It's always going to be an attachment. That's my football team and my baseball team, because I don't have it at DePaul right now.
Right.
But like if there's going to be anything else connection, I'd love to be able to get them on the schedule so we can play in basketball. That'd be a fun thing. But right now, they get to go out and get a great leader going forward to carry on that legacy. And you know, I think right now we're at the place we want to be, and we'll keep pressing forward to show how we can accomplish our dreams and aspirations too here at DePaul.
So I'm guessing with that many connections, you did hear from Kentucky, but did they gauge your interest a little bit, huh?
I mean, I think just to be respectful for their process, you know, I don't want to really get into that because they've got a timetable and they've got great leaders of what they want to do. I won't really speak to the specifics of that, you know, because they have, you know, be respectful to their process. But, you know, if they need to talk to me about anything or things, so if I'm part of the listening tour or whatever, then, you know, those things will happen as they happen. But I think right now, I just, you know, they got a long process. Mitch is going to be there through the end of June. And so I think they'll figure out the timetable for that and how much involvement they want alum and former staff to be a part of that, because, you know, I'm always willing to listen and have a role in helping them, because it's one of my schools too. I want to see them succeed. But right now, as far as in this role and in serving every day, you know, I'm really concentrating on what's going on in Lincoln Park and at DePaul.
Let's talk about DePaul in the next 5 years. How do you envision DePaul standing out among its Big East peers in the rev-share era?
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges I had coming in, is that challenging our current people and our new staff of what the opportunity is here, why I came here, right? And as I look back and why I want to be here even longer, is we've got to start climbing that ladder. We started out with budget constraints of being the lowest funded program in the Big East, facility constraints. We've addressed some of those issues now to give us a fighting chance to be able to bring a championship experience for our coaches, our staff, and our student athletes at this level. And the revenue sharing era has actually helped us at DePaul, mainly because we didn't have as many constituents and alums and donors that were giving at a high level, mainly because of our lack of success in men's basketball in the last couple of decades. And so it's given us a chance, as we gravitated and grew those things, to now have some internal plays that can help us more, right? Because now our fundraising efforts, you know, we have new leadership in Patrick Gray that's come in the last 3 years, you know, who worked at both West Virginia and Michigan to really redefine how we're doing our fundraising. Our Mikan Society has grown, you know, and members and our giving levels have reached record levels. But that all allows us to do that directly to DePaul versus dealing with third-party collective is a major part of our fundraising efforts. And, you know, just the education process that had to go with people with tax deductibility and things of that nature. In the Big East, without football, we can really concentrate all our fundraising efforts to be to DePaul. That's helpful in our community. That's helpful for people to understand how I give, people that are very donor fund focused, I think there's just so many more ways to give and help us do business development and growth. I have this unique opportunity to grow our revenue streams at DePaul all internally to be able to help offset the cost of doing this new business model. If I looked at where we are in a budget standpoint now, back when I first started, I would have been extremely happy, and this would have been well more than I asked for. But in this new era, we're still playing a little bit of catch up. But I do feel like, we have a campus that wants to see us succeed. We've grown our revenues in every stream that's possible, and we still have so much room for growth because we haven't had that ultimate success. I don't have all my season tickets sold in the lower bowl of Wintrust Arena, let alone the whole venue like some of my peers. We're looking at new MMR partner right now to be able to come along this journey with me of how we're going to grow our different revenues too. And we have current partners like Tamar on the ticket side that are allowing our internal people to grow. And I think that's the most exciting part of it, is that I'm in a league with the Villanovas and the UConns and say the Marquettes that are filling their arenas for every game and have had success. And I still have those same opportunities, but I can make more money and grow more people because we haven't reached our peak. I mean, 85% of DePaul alums live here in Chicago.
Really?
So I've got the last 2 decades of people that might have didn't go to basketball games, but they still went to DePaul. They want to be proud and us being successful and get those people into Wintrust. Our giving tree, we set a record for 2,500 unique donors last year. Wow. Giving to DePaul, right? And so that's more than any university college that we have at DePaul. So we have this opportunity to grow the amount of people, not just the high level donors. And I think allows people to, whether you're making a $25 deposit on new season tickets at that level, or you're making a 7-figure gift, all of that matters here. And I think that's the unique thing of me coming out of the SEC, where maybe, me getting a call about a $10,000 donation might not be the thing that makes my day. Like, that's huge for us at $100,000, gift. We started a foundation circle of $100,000 donors that we're trying to grow. That my original goal was a handful, and now we're trying to figure out how do we get that to 20 by the end of next fiscal year. Like, those are the type of things that get us excited, because those things can feed that engine to allow us to grow in men and women's basketball and revenue sharing and being one of the most funded programs in the Big East, because we're in a league where we know we can be competitive in this league. We can be competitive nationally to get us on that stage that we want to be that true front porch of campus that contributes back to growing enrollment, growing applications, where everybody on campus understands the role we play.
Why do you think your message is resonating with fans? Why are you having this much success fundraising?
I mean, we've become America's team quite a bit. I mean, my goal was to be Chicago's team, but I think everybody tries rooting for the underdog, to see how hard our kids play in both men and women's basketball, where we're coming from, the scrutiny we've gone through, and just to see and the excitement, beating our rival, sweeping Marquette, beating Creighton twice when we hadn't beat them and so long. I think we had one of the longest losing streaks ever. Being able to just make history, like, people like that. I think that's the thing about March Madness, where people like seeing people do a lot of first, and we have a lot of room in it. I think our staff, Coach Holtman's done a good job of embracing that as an outsider coming in it, being in this league, knowing what the challenge, having a coach that's been the conference coach of the year 3 different times and comes with some credibility. We had 3.1 billion impressions, billion with a B, when we hired him, right? Just a hire, because he brought a lot of pedigree with him, whether that was being at Ohio State, being in the Big East, well-known, went to 8 consecutive NCAA tournaments. That came a little bit with the 2, right? So, you added that piece together with a fan base that is hungry. We have a group of people that follow us. They might not go to every game. They might not be buying merchandise yet. They might not be buying season tickets yet, but they're checking the score. And now that they're seeing some of those things changing, we've had a growth in attendance for the 2nd straight year. We set a record for student attendance this year. We're one of the largest Catholic schools in the country. So there's people here. We're over 20,000 students. We don't need every one of them, but we just need a percentage of them to come out and support, because that helps this team get across the line to be able to get more wins, right? And then that comes more investment in our sales, reinvestment in our sales. And so I think that's the thing that's exciting, is that people believe in us, because no one's took over the opportunity to be in Chicago's team. It's left there, right? I mean, Northwestern is not in Chicago. Illinois is not in Chicago. So there's no real Big Ten team here. We're the biggest thing going, and we still have this following from a generation when we were on WGN and had, Final Fours and success and going to tournaments. Now it's time to get back into the NCAAs. And I think people are seeing that progress going from 3 wins to 14 to 16. And now how do we grow to that 18 to 20 team league and get in the top half and getting in the tournament to really show that we have arrived and we're staying in that spot going forward.
Your prior Dream Big campaign, which is what you're in, and we will finish it up the end of this fiscal year. You'll start a new one. What can you share about things we might be seeing in that one that will kind of forecast where you see DePaul going?
I think the biggest things that's a shift for us is the things I talked about before, being that true front porch where it's accountable, where people can see it. Internally, people probably whirling like, why did DeWayne even get an extension? What have they done at DePaul, right? But I will tell you, internally on this campus, people have seen not what I've done, but our department, our coaches, our staff, the change we've done as far as to grow. My goal is to be the best partner on campus, right? Because if everybody, our students, our staff, our faculty can all feel like why we have athletics, why is it important? That's me accomplishing our goal. And I think that's the thing that we have really done well in the first 5 years is get where now people want to see us win and succeed, right? I talked about the student attendance growth. I've got every dean even has a credential for the game now because they come to games. We had, our biggest faculty and staff turnouts that we've had in recent success of coming to games because that's a vested interest because they know it helps the school. Whether I'm a basketball fan or not, if I work at DePaul, I know this is helpful for us. And that's happening. My trustees are becoming donors for the first time too, because we're seeing that. I think so when you really think about those kind of situations, I think that's what's really we've done in the first 5 years. This second 5 is now seeing those results externally. You don't have to be internal to feel the growth, right? We need to see, I want to be an NCAA top 100 program. We only have 15 sports, so that's a hard path to get there. That starts with having the NCAA tournament become the floor, not the ceiling for us, right? Where there's an expectations that we're going to be in postseason across as many sports as possible. I want to be an everything school, not just a basketball school. And that takes that combination. But I'm really challenging my staff that I want people to really understand the value of having DePaul athletics succeed. That front porch can be raggedy and shut down, or it can have a nice paint job where everybody wants to come up and see what's behind that house. So my faculty, my deans, the staff here, the work they're putting into it can be seen on that national stage. And we owe that to them. So that's why our men and women's basketball programs have to do their parts to be that visual piece. So like when this next strategic plan is over, we should be a perennial team in our basketball programs. We should have the data that shows the increase in applications, enrollment, and retention that affect on campus student life and campus and school spirit should be accountable. Like we could shoot the metrics to see that growth. And there's never a question anymore of why do we exist? Why do we have to put so much investment in this? I think that's the thing that I'm hoping to come out of this Dream Big 2.0 until name later going forward.
I don't envy your role at all because I feel like there's so much on your plate right now. It's awesome though. It's a good problem to have. Something I always think about when I interview athletic directors is all they have going on there at their campus and their strategic initiatives, and then the things going on in college athletics right now that you literally have no control over, but it is truly impacting what you do on a daily basis. How much time do you spend in your day, or think a little bit about some of the banter that goes on when they talk about things like the SEC and the Big Ten breaking away? How would that impact us? Do you think about those things? Can you plan for any of that?
I think I've got to be the resident expert in that because everybody on our campus wants to ask those questions. That's what you see on the major online networks or on TV. Those are those discussions, not maybe with the things I just got through talking about. But I think that's where it helps that I spent 20 years in the SEC. I've got those contacts. I can have those conversations with some of my peers and figure out what they're thinking, because I've got to be thinking about what does it look like 3 to 5 years from now, not our current reality. We haven't had the same set of rules in any year that I've been an athletic director. So you've got to be very adaptable in this business. but you got to be what I would call reading the tea leaves, right? You got to kind of figure out where you think it's going. And so I think that's a lot of side conversations. I've had a lot of those power four athletic directors speak to my senior leadership team about what are their challenges. We've got to be thinking in terms of being at that level consistently, because we don't know what the model is going to change. I tell our leadership that we've got a 2 or 3 year window to be able to put ourselves in a better spot. So if there is a shift or the wind blows another direction, that we're one of those schools or one of those programs that's considered, a top 75 athletic program at the highest level, right? We can't operate where we are right now and think we're going to be a part of anything that evolves into something different in the current model, right? So that's a challenge for us, right? But I think we want to be adaptable. I think I've got really good people here on my staff, and I try to surround myself with people that have incredible work ethic, that have passion for what they do, because you've got to be able to ride this wave of ebb and flow of how it changes every day. But you got to be great teammates, because we're not going to have as many people as the staffs I had to work with at Kentucky or even in the SEC as a whole. But we've got to be able to do a lot with a little. And I think that's allowed me where I've got people shifting. I've got one role that might have been this 3 years ago that now, because of NIL and revenue sharing, that you got to do all this. Well, I need people that might have a lawyer background, but maybe that's not what you're doing, but it might come in handy later, or somebody that has experience at some different places. And I think that's what's helped us here. And so I think that's not a concern, but I do think in my quarterly board of trustee meetings, we have something we call emerging issues, where it's almost like I am giving, I'm educating people that don't have to read it every day. That's not focusing on the bottom line consistently. Those are things that it's almost, if we look at it, it's going to be a booklet of all the ever changing things. We can't be going into a meeting and it's the first time they've heard about it and we're dealing with an issue. They're counting on me to present that to them, that these things might be coming, so we can be over prepared for what's to come in this business. And I think that's the thing. It gives me a little bit of an edge. I'm an athletic director that's been in my 6th year ever in this seat. But somebody that's done it for 20 years doesn't have an edge over me, because it's all new, right? We've done these last 6 years together. And I think that's what allows us to be having conversations, to be at the forefront. I'm willing to be a thought leader in that space, because we're all trying to figure this out. And this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And, versus maybe somebody that's on the end of their career, like, I just don't want to do this, deal with this anymore. This is not why I got into it. Me and others in this peer group, we have to continue doing this. This is more 10 to 15 more years of what we're going to plan to do. So we've got to figure out how do we make this as successful as it can be, because it just affects the young people. I've got a son who's a redshirt freshman wide receiver at Western Michigan. I'm seeing it on both sides as a parent and as a director of athletics. And it's kind of fun to be able to talk to a group of 5, bunch of ADs that I know, to talk to the Power 4 administrators that I know, but also our uniqueness in the Big East, trying to figure out the landscape of what's to come.
And there's nothing that changes it more than when you're a parent and you walk through that. It is a different viewpoint with your son. That is very interesting. When you hear the discussions around collective bargaining and all that, do you weigh in on those conversations, or do you just kind of take it in? What are your thoughts on some of that?
I think I feel like as the Big East, because we're the biggest basketball focused conference, we need to be a leader in some of the conversations about that piece, right? Because most of the decisions are so football focused, and I understand it. The numbers, the sheer magnitude of the revenue that comes from it. Men's basketball is a good chunk, mainly because of what we do from the NCAA tournament and those factors. But we have an opportunity, because I've got 10 other peers in the Big East that are focused on that piece of the business of men's basketball than anybody in the country for 12 months. It is at the front of our thinking, right? So how do we and some others really lead that charge of what that piece looks like, and to make sure that it's not an afterthought or a tag along, because the football model is so different from where it was. I mean, we have a CFP, we have bowl structure, payout that is not really even associated directly with the NCAA, right? So we need to be having every conversation possible to make sure this game of basketball doesn't get, put to the wayside. And I think there's the good things. We have really good leadership. What Danny Gavitt is doing at the NCAA, and really caring about those pieces. But what conversations can we be having on just about basketball, just like if we were really talking about it from a CFP standpoint? So, I look at the people on the selection committee, that leadership, both on the men and women's basketball side, doing a great job. We have, really good people within our league that are representing us there. Val Ackerman, the commissioner of the Big East, has done a really good job of making sure that Big East has a seat at the table in some of those NCAA discussions. But I think we just have to continue that. We have to continue as far as what does it mean for our sport, all our Olympic sports, make sure they're protected. No one needs to be cutting sports to be able to survive. But we also have to make sure our student athlete experience doesn't drop off either. It's a really interesting problem, but we're all looking for solutions. Everybody can get in a meeting and start talking about all the problems we have, but that doesn't really do us any good. We got to figure out solutions going forward. I mean, and if you've been around it enough, you've seen it where we, like 5 years ago, we were talking about different things that we would love to have right now. It's our only issues. But I think the fact that it is, the games are at the highest levels of viewing. We're finding out that people are willing to pay for the product. I would have never thought in my wildest dreams of fundraising when I was at Kentucky that people are willing to be able to give up their discretionary income at this level to help their programs. Mm-hmm. But we can't count on that going forward because of the donor fatigue and the actual, amount of money people have, will be fleeting at some degree because it's only escalating every year. So we've got to figure out some guardrails before we lose this, because the people that we need the most is what's keeping these games afloat. That's what keeping football and basketball in business. And I think that's really, we got to really look at, are we pricing ourselves out of it? Because the people we need the most are our fans that are watching. That's why we have these great TV contracts. That's why we have these full stadiums and arenas, right? They have families too. Their cost of livings are going higher. Everything else they do is growing. We're not even giving them tax deductibility on tickets like we used to. Like, we've got to make sure we're taking care of those people too, because we won't have any student athletes if we don't have any fans. We won't, these donors, like every fan's a donor right now. Like, I try to tell our people that it doesn't matter whether you give me a 6 or 7 figure gift. If you're a season ticket holder, you're just as important to me, because I can have 10,000 of you, right? But I'm only going to have a few of these people that could go away on a whim or not feel good about the direction of it. So all these things matter. And I think we just need to make sure that we're treating people the right way. They're having the best experience. We really created this situation where we need them both at the game and at home watching. And that's a really interesting dynamic, right? Where we're counting all our dollars both ways. We're complaining that nobody's coming to the games, but we need them to be home to keep our ratings high so we can get all these good TV contracts and monies. And keep in mind, nobody's making more kids, right? The demographics is dropping. There's less people. I don't know how that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So we've got to because it's not going to continue to grow. So we've got to figure out a way to, to organize this to where it has a growth to it versus us just figuring it out every year and hoping we can get to the next one. And I think that's the thing that, I think us and, myself and others can lead those conversations, because we're the ones that need to sustain ourselves and be a part of this growth. Because, we're in this business for the rest of our careers, hopefully.
So well said. And you made me laugh. Love that. So last question for you. You're on your way home tonight. You're going to stop and get some pizza. Best deep dish pizza. Where are you going?
I'm a Pequod's pizza person. I heard Chris Holtman say that the other day, and I was like, we have never shared Pequod's. I really like Pequod's because I got to get it well done.
Okay.
But if you get here, it's really like a meal. You need fork, knife. There's no slice. It's as far away from New York pizza that it can be, because it is deep dish at its finest, right? I do have a lot of places that I really like. Illuminati's is right by my house, so it's really a hard turn to go buy that every day, because that's one of the staples of, that's been here forever. And like my underrated one is right walking this from my office is Home Slice. I just really like their kind of thin, just more of a thin crust, kind of tavern style pizza. That's kind of, mix it up. But if I got to go like one shot, somebody coming in, probably something they never had, is Pequod's. But if I'm shipping something to a friend and letting them know a little taste of Chicago, I'm shipping them Illuminati's.
Okay. Maybe you need to ship something down here in Texas.
That's what I'm talking about. I can. All right.
All right.
Probably get a few text messages asking for, hey, where's my pizza shipment that I got last year?
Thank you again for your time. Continued success, and congratulations on your extension.
Thanks for having me on.